In this video, I'll be providing a tutorial on the FogOfWar system that I created. To use the FogOfWar feature, you need two actors, a manager object and a grid object. Let's start by creating them through inheritance. Select Blueprint and search for FogOfWar. You'll find Manager and Grid. What we need to inherit are BP FogOfWar Grid and BP FogOfWar Manager. Of course, since we're not going to modify these blueprints, you can use the blueprints as they are without inheriting. Let's start by inheriting BP FogOfWar Manager. I'll name it BP My FogOfWar Manager. Now let's inherit Grid in the same way. With these created, place the grid object in the level first. Place it anywhere for now. And since the grid object has boundaries, set it so that the boundaries cover the level you want to use. To set this up, find the FogOfWar Grid section in the Grid Objects Detail panel. Here you have collision type, resolution, and volume extent. To set the boundary, increase the extent size so it wraps around the level. The empty space does not affect functionality, so you can ignore it. Another important setting is collision type. The grid will perform raycasting to detect the project's floor or wall, so it needs to be set to the object type. The default setting is world static, so we'll leave it as is. Grid resolution adjusts the detail level of the grid. Since this is closely related to performance, set it according to your project's needs. Grid setup is done. Now let's place the manager object in the same way. The manager object's location doesn't matter, so you can place it anywhere. Looking at the manager object's detail panel, you'll see Config, Management, Grid, and Debug sections. Since we won't be using Management and Debug right now, fold them up. For now, check the FogOfWar Grid section. You need to link the grid object you placed in the level here. If this isn't done, the fog won't work properly, so it's essential to link it. With this, the FogOfWar should work correctly. It may seem like nothing is visible right now, but it's working properly. The reason nothing is visible is that there are no objects providing visibility at the moment. Stop the simulation for now, and let's add visibility to the character. There's a BP top-down character blueprint in the top-down section. We are using this character, right? Let's add FogOfWar to this character. In the FogOfWar detail panel, you can set the FogOfWar type. It can be set to floor, wall, unit, or enemy. Since we will use this character as a unit, set it as unit. Set the visibility range to 500. With these settings, let's start again. Now, the visibility is revealed, right? Since the visibility is too narrow, let's adjust the camera settings a bit. Yes, it's much clearer now. Now, let's create an enemy. For the enemy, we'll use a cube. Add FogOfWar to the cube and set it as an enemy. Note that Site applies only to units, so we won't adjust it separately. Restart to see the changes. When you get close, the cube becomes visible, and when you move out of visibility, the cube disappears. Next, let's work on the floor and wall types. The process for wall and floor is the same as for the enemy. Let's quickly set these up. With everything added, let's start again. Approaching the object set as wall will block the visibility. To see more clearly, turn off the blur effect and check again. In the FogOfWar Manager's config, there's a parameter called blur distance. Reducing this parameter weakens the blur effect. Now the visibility is clearer, right? Reset to the original settings. When placing the enemy next to the wall, it's visible when the unit looks at it. But when it goes behind the wall, it becomes obscured and the enemy is not visible. Finally, let's review the manager's parameters. For a better example, we'll use the pre-made showcase map. Running the level, you can see that it works well. One thing to note is that depending on the height of the visibility, even if an object is within the unit's range, if it's higher than the unit, it won't be visible to the unit. So, you can only see it when a unit from above is illuminating the area. This covers the basic functionality. And now let's look at the manager's parameters. Starting with config, there's an update rate parameter. Reducing this 16 slows down the update rate of the fog. Conversely, increasing it smooths out the fog. However, it significantly impacts performance, so use it according to your project's needs. Interp speed is related to after images, and explaining would require looking at internal code, so we'll skip it for now. We've already checked blur distance. And explored fog is a parameter for whether the map starts covered or not. In typical AOS genres, the map starts fully visible, so turning this parameter off can create a typical AOS feel. Turning it off will make all areas visible from the start, and turning it back on will make everything hidden, with visibility only where units have passed. Use this according to your project. Finally, let's wrap up with a look at debug. Thank you.